Vic Mullen, grumpy old Scotsman, how are we all doing? A little bit of a break during the videos there. Had a lot of family stuff going on, basically family popping up visiting during the weekend. So back again, Monday evening. Something happened over the weekend, which I'm kind of little bit miffed off. I didn't get a chance to. I didn't get a chance to look at the original article because it's been pulled. Let's wind back though. Wind back that clock, shall we? A little bit. To about 2.5 years ago, there was a documentary on BBC Two. And the one good thing about the British Broadcasting Corporation, if they get good journalists involved in their investigation, like Panorama for instance, they generally tend to do good documentaries. Everything else from the BBC is a load of propaganda crap, including Doctor Who, but their documentaries, if they're well written, with a good neutral journalist, some of the best documentaries ever made for the UK were made by the British Broadcasting Corporation. 2.5 years ago, there was a BBC documentary put out that followed, I think it was 3 Pakistani Muslim families. 2 of the families were in Pakistan. One of the families had recently moved here. Via legal immigration, not boat, but legal immigration. And this whole documentary that I think it went on for about an hour and a half. It was a longer one for the BBC. This documentary was all about incest, first cousin marriages, something that is frowned upon. It's not illegal, but it's severely frowned upon in most Western societies, whether it be Europe, whether it be the UK, whether it be Canada, whether it be the United States, whether it be Australia. Usually democratic based, like, open voting, that kind of thing. Democratic based societies, first cousin and brother and sister marriages are frowned upon for numerous reasons. One of the major reasons is the health of the baby when it's born. So going back to these 3 Pakistani Muslim families, all 3 of these families each had married their first cousins, which is a thing. It's a thing in some countries and in a lot of countries where Muslim or Islam is the predominant race. Not race, the predominant religion. Now, some countries you don't get a lot of first cousin marriages that are predominantly Islam. But in some other countries, United Arab Emirates, Pakistan, Qatar, I'm thinking right in saying Qatar, it's literally a half dozen countries. First cousin arranged marriages are very common. Very, very common. Again, this is not a thing where all of the Islamic religion countries are doing this. It's only a half dozen or so. Only a half dozen. And Pakistan is one of the biggest ones. All 3 of these families in this documentary all had kids. All of them had kids. The family that moved here legally immigrated to the United Kingdom had 4 children. And all of the 4 children were relatively grown up, the oldest one being in their late 20s, the youngest one being in their teens. All 4 of these kids were severely mentally disabled, to the point that they needed 24/7 care via the National Health Service. The 2 families that were being followed over in Pakistan had about 3 or 4 children. I think one had 3 children, the other one had 4 children from what I remember. The family that had 3 children, 2 of them were severely mentally disabled. The family that had 4 children, like the family living over here in the UK, the family that had 4 children, 3 of them were severely mentally disabled. It's some, what's that, I should have looked up the term. It's where something is severely wrong with the brain, like severely wrong with the brain, so much so that the entire skull has basically collapsed in on itself because there's literally very little brain matter up there. And it's a common, very common actually, mental disorder and physical disorder because of the shrunken brain size that happens in families where there is a long line of first cousin marriages. Now, this is not to say that first cousin marriages don't happen in the Western world. Here's a classic example, the royal family. Now, you don't see it now, not now, but in the Victorian age, Queen Victoria, the reason she's called the grandmother, or sorry, she'll be the great-grandmother now coming to her, maybe even great-great-grandmother, but she's basically the grandmother of modern royal families in Europe. And the reason is because she was very, very shrewd in the way that she, being the eldest and most statesman-like of the royalty back then during the Victorian age, the way that she arranged marriages within Central Europe compared to the offspring that her and Prince Albert had here in the UK. But a classic example of why the royal family basically stopped first cousin marriages is because of Prince Leopold. Probably a lot of people don't even remember that name. Prince Leopold was haemophilic. He suffered from haemophilia, which was a thing that never happened. It was never seen in the royal family line on Victoria's side, and it was never seen on the royal family line on the Albert side and the branch-offs of those families, because Leopold was basically the result of first cousin marriage. There is a reason that Western cultures have frowned upon first cousin marriages and severely frowned on brother and sister marriages, because what basically happens is if that first cousin marriage then goes on to another first cousin marriage and another first cousin marriage and another first cousin marriage, instead of spreading the gene pool out, you're condensing the gene pool down to such an extent that any physical or mental deformities or handicaps that have been buried because of a larger gene pool now pop up because the gene pool has now shrunk. That's why first cousin marriages and brother and sister marriages never ever happen, or at least rarely happen in Western society, because all doctors and all medical professionals would turn round and say, no, you have got a massively increased risk of a disabled child. Just either a physically deformed child or a mentally handicapped child, if you're a first cousin marriage, and more especially if you're a brother and sister marriage. The National Health Service released statistics at the very beginning of last year which showed that even though Pakistani marriages only make up between 5 to 6% of a given population in an average town or city in England, their disabled offspring makes up 50% of total child disabilities for that town or city in England. 4 to 5% marriage, slightly over 50% of children born with mental disabilities or physical deformities. And the reason for it is because a lot, but not all, a lot of the Pakistani marriages are arranged marriages between first cousins. This was the NHS saying this about a year and a half ago. The NHS in black and white blatantly saying a year after the documentary by the BBC that, hey, first cousin marriages are not advisable. Not advisable. Number one, any children born runs the risk, a great risk, I think they said over 35%, over normal, over the baseline limit, 35% greater risk of having physical abnormalities, physical deformities, or mental handicaps, like severe mental handicaps. And then this happened. Now, this is why I'm kind of pissed off I never got to see the original article, because the NHS actually pulled it. But the after effects of this particular NHS post are still being felt right now. a day, and much probably closer to 2 days after the NHS pulled this article. This is from the Telegraph. First cousin marriage has benefits. What the are you... Moving on. First cousin marriage has benefits, says NHS guidance, despite birth defect risk. Tory MP says health service should stop taking the knee to damaging cultural practices. The NHS has been urged to apologise for publishing guidance extolling the benefits of first cousin marriage despite the increased risk of birth defects. Guidance published last week by NHS England's Genomics Education Programme says first cousin marriage is linked to, and I quote, stronger extended family support systems and economic advantages. But the practice has also been linked to oppression of women and also has a proven increased risk of genetic disease in offspring of first cousin relationships. Richard Holden, the Tory MP, told the Mail on Sunday, our NHS should stop taking the knee to damaging and oppressive cultural practices. The Conservatives want, blah, 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 the Conservatives' political grandstanding, nobody cares. But Richard Holden's right. The NHS are now taking the knee to Pakistani arranged first cousin marriages. Less than a year and a half ago, the same NHS was basically saying in plain black and white on their own website, first cousin marriages are a detriment to the health of children that may be born to that marriage. All of a sudden they've done a 180. Now, the original paper, I never got to see it because the NHS pulled it from their website. It's gone. It's now a 404 error because some of the links was still active on Twitter/X. So I clicked on it, 404 error, and the page wasn't up long enough to actually be archived by the Internet Archive. It's not even on the Internet Archive. It was up for about 12 hours. There was a massive explosion on X and Facebook, and the NHS pulled it down. But why is the NHS doing this? Has it got something to do with the 1.2 million, wait for it, legal immigrants that have been coming into the UK from Pakistan? Not just Pakistan, but from Pakistan, some from India, some from Afghanistan, and some from the north of Africa. You see, the problem we've got isn't the boat people, it's legal immigration. The boat people only make up about 30 to 40,000 illegal immigrants a year, but look at the numbers for legal migrants. You're talking 900,000 to 1.1 million every single year. And that number's been steadily increasing since the time that Boris Johnson was Prime Minister. And most of those legal migrants, over 60% of them, from the last numbers I looked at about 3 or 4 months ago, were from Pakistan. And they were full families. Now here's the interesting part. That documentary I was talking about at the very beginning of this video, the 2 families that they were following over in Pakistan, they ended up emigrating here with their disabled children. Why? Because British healthcare is free. Don't take it from me. That's what the families actually said. They wanted to move here so the British NHS could take care of their mentally disabled children. Yeah. What is happening to this country? What's happening? For decades, for centuries even, because this was just after the Victorian age. We're getting into the Edwardian age when Victoria died. So we're talking centuries ago. Yeah, technically it is centuries ago. For centuries, we've been told by doctors, by healthcare professionals, hey, don't do first cousin marriages, don't do brother and sister marriages, it's not good for the gene pool and your children may be mentally disabled. Now all of a sudden, all these Pakistani Muslims start flooding the country, most of them in first cousin arranged marriages, and the NHS is doing a 180 saying, oh, well, There's benefits to marrying your first cousin. It's got economic benefits and it's got a stable family benefit. And they completely, now from what, again, I've not seen the article, it was pulled, but from what people on X are saying, they completely skipped the part about disabled and handicapped children. Completely skipped it. Blanked out. Not even mentioned. Gone. What are they going to do next to appease the Pakistani Muslims? Oh, well, sex with 9-year-old kids could be beneficial to the child. Really? Because that's what I'm expecting them to say next. Honestly. Honestly. Because here's the other problem. Arranged marriages between first cousins sometimes happens with a grown-up male and an underage female. Don't believe me? Look it up. Arranged marriages in certain, again, not all, but certain Muslim-dominated countries can sometimes happen between a man in their 30s and sometimes 40s and a first cousin who is under 16 years old. And people wonder why Muslim rape gangs are happening here in the UK. And when some of these Pakistani Muslims, especially the Pakistani Muslims, when some of these Pakistani Muslims are cornered by the press or cornered by individuals, what's the first thing they say? It's okay to do this in my country. They literally say that. It's okay to do it in my country. Again, don't believe me? Look it up. Google it. Google it. There is fucking result upon result upon result upon result where the argument made by the rapist is, it's okay to do it in my country. What's happening to this country, folks? What's happening? I don't think it was Tommy Robinson that said this. I think it was Jordan Peterson that said it. Or was it? No, it wasn't Tommy. Again, I don't agree with a lot of the stuff that Tommy Robinson does, but he's bang on point with what's been happening recently. He's bang on point. He was the first man, the first public person to stand up and point out the Pakistani rape gangs. And he done it more than 20 years ago, people. 20 years, well, more like 15 years. 15 years ago. 15. Before the press was talking about it, before the national newspapers were talking about it, before podcasters were talking about it, Tommy Robinson was standing alone, warning the UK, and nobody listened. But it wasn't Robinson that said this. I think it might have been Jordan Peterson. Import the third world, you slowly become the third world. Look at what's happening to the UK right now. The NHS, less than a year and a half ago, basically saying that third cousin marriages are basically bad. Less than a year and a half later, after massive Pakistani immigration to the UK, legal and illegal, or most of them who are married, most of them are first cousin arranged marriages, and a lot of them have disabled kids. All of a sudden the NHS put a blog post up, essentially defending first cousin marriages. What's happening to this country? Honestly, what's happening? I honestly don't know. Honestly, I don't know. This is why I wished I seen the original blog, but because I was having a lot of visitors up, it was one of my cousin's birthdays, they were popping up for a visit and more family were popping up and lots of cake was eaten and I had a very nice weekend. But I didn't get a chance to see the article. Just didn't get a chance to see it. But there we go, folks. Apparently, if you feel like marrying your first cousin, the NHS has basically said it's now got benefits, and just ignore the fact that your kids may end up disabled. Just ignore that part. Just ignore it. I don't know. I honestly don't know. What the hell is happening to this country? Honestly don't know. Anyway, that is it for me, folks. Have a good one.